Hello everyone, it is fantastic to have you all back. My apologies for my absence. I have had a crazy few months. I got a new job, moved back home to Houston, and bought a house. I hope my next episode won't take me as long. I really appreciate your patience. Episode 4, Dance Off Bro, Me and You. After the Second War of Schleswig, Bismarck could not call a day and head off into the abyss. In 1866, Bismarck proceeded with his endeavors to divert liberal interest from the budget and towards the achievement of the Prussian military. He would do this by playing a little game of cat and mouse with the Austrians over the German people. He constantly told the Austrians that their future lay in the south and that they would be wise to yield their leadership role in Germany. Unfortunately for the Austrians, they could not see the foreshadowing that we all see coming. Bismarck, by this time, had fully embraced the German national card to achieve a Prussian-ruled Germany. With his mind set, he created a military alliance with Italy and made sure Russia would remain neutral in any upcoming conflict between Prussia and Austria. The casus belli of the war was, of course, the administration of Schleswig-Holstein. After defeating Denmark, the Austrians and Prussians agreed to a joint occupation. However, Austria requested a resolution on the status of Holstein from the Federal Convention on June 1, 1866, which Prussia considered a violation of the mutual contract and considered it an act of aggression. 9 days later, under this pretext, Prussia invaded Holstein, leading to the outbreak of the Austro-Prussian War, also known as the 7-Week War. Bismarck declared that the German Confederation was ended when the German Diet voted for a partial mobilization against Prussia. Crown Prince Frederick opposed the idea of war with Austria and was the only member of the Prussian Crown Council to do so, as he considered the war fratricide. However, he did support German unification, but thought war was the wrong way to do so. Feeling provoked, many small German states actually went to the side of the Austrians. However, thanks to Roon's reorganization of the Prussian army and Moltke's strategic genius, Prussia's army was able to fight and win many of the battles. As an important side note during this time, we need to talk about a Mr. Ferdinand Cohen-Blind. After the German revolutions in the mid-1840s, Cohen-Blind and his family went into exile, stopping in Brussels and Paris before arriving in London in 1852. Blind unfortunately formed a childhood in exile, and following in the shoes of his parents, he dismissed the German state's monarch system of governing. When he was 18 years old, Cohen-Blind returned to Germany, studying at Tübingen University at the Oenheim Agricultural Academy, where he was recognized as a fine student. After graduating, Cohen-Blind took a tour across Bavaria and Bohemia in March 1866. However, with the increasingly probability of war between Prussia and Austria, Blind decided to try to assassinate Bismarck, who he saw as a source of threat of war. Blind arrived in Berlin and checked in on May 5th at the hotel. And on the afternoon of May 7th, 1866, Ferdinand Cohen-Blind was waiting for Bismarck, a revolver in hand. Bismarck had just been meeting with King Wilhelm and was now walking home. When Bismarck was near the Russian embassy, Cohen-Blind targeted and shot Bismarck twice from behind. Bismarck spun around and grabbed his assailant, who was able to shoot 3 more times before the 2nd Guard 1st Battalion troops hurried up and took him into custody. However, Bismarck continued on his way home. He later permitted the king's doctor to examine him. The doctor observed that only Bismarck's body had been grazed by the first 3 bullets, and the last 2 ricocheted off his ribs, causing no significant wounds. Cohen-Blind maybe should have invested in something with a little bit more stopping power. Cohen-Blind was taken for questioning to police headquarters, but he slashed his own throat with a knife in an unguarded moment, cutting his carotid artery. Soon after 4 a.m., he died on May 8th. His body was rapidly buried in St. Nicholas Cemetery at night without a ceremony. It's kind of ironic he couldn't kill someone with a gun, but took his own life with a knife. Maybe he should have brought the knife to the Russian embassy. It is interesting to think what kind of psychological impact this attempted assassination had on Bismarck for the rest of his life, and what decisions were made that altered the course of history. Now, onward with the narrative. It is important to realize the geopolitics that happened before the war. As mentioned before, Bismarck created an alliance with Italy, committing it to war if Prussia and Austria went to war within 3 months. This was a clear incentive for Bismarck to go to war with Austria in order to distract Austria power from Prussia. The timing of the declaration was ideal, either because all the other European powers were bound by alliances that prevented them from joining the war, or they had priority domestic issues. Russia still had bitter feelings over Austria's support of the anti-Russian coalition during the Crimean War, and Britain had no stakes politically or economically in the war between Austria and Prussia. France was also unlikely to join Austria's side, as Bismarck and Napoleon III met in Biarritz and supposedly discussed whether or not France would intervene in a prospective conflict between Austria and Prussia. Even though the details of the discussion are unknown, many historians believe that the Prussians were guaranteed French neutrality if war were to take place. The overwhelming advantages of the Prussian army against the Austrians may have well encouraged Bismarck to go to war. However, some historians believe that Bismarck might have been reluctant to pursue war as it could deprive him of control. However, Bismarck's goals were in the hands of the two most famous military reformers of all time. We are talking about, of course, Moltke and Roon. In 1862, von Roon had implemented several army reforms that ensured that all Prussian citizens were liable for service. Before this date, the size of the army had been fixed earlier by laws that had not taken population growth into account, making conscription inadequate and unpopular for this reason. Introducing universal conscription for 3 years increased the size of the active army and provided Russia with a reserve army equal in size to that which Moltke deployed against Austria. Had France, under Napoleon III, attempted to intervene against Prussians, they could have been faced with an equal or superior number of troops. The Prussian conscript service was one of continuous training and drill. In contrast, some commanders in the Austrian army routinely dismissed infantry conscripts to their homes on permanent leave soon after their introduction into the army, only retaining a cadre of long-term soldiers for formal parades and routine duties. Austrian conscripts had to be trained almost from scratch when they were recalled to their units on the outbreak of war. The Prussian army was thus better trained and disciplined than the Austrian army, particularly in the infantry, while Austrian cavalry and artillery were as well trained as their Prussian counterparts, with Austria possessing 2 elite divisions of heavy cavalry. Unfortunately for the Austrians, weapons and tactics had advanced since the Napoleonic Wars, and cavalry charges had been rendered obsolete. The railway system of Prussia was more extensively developed than that within Austria. Railways made it possible to supply a large number of troops and allowed the rapid movement of troops within friendly territory. The more efficient Prussian railway network allowed the Prussian army to concentrate more rapidly than the Austrians. Moltke, reviewing his plans to Roon, stated, "We have the advantage of being able to carry our field army of 285,000 men over 5 railway lines and of virtually concentrating them in 25 days. Austria only has 1 railway line, and it will take her 45 days to assemble 200,000 men." Moltke had said earlier, "Nothing could be more welcome to us than to have now the war that we all must have." The Austrian army under Ludwig von Bismarck in Bohemia might previously have been expected to enjoy the advantage of the central position by being able to concentrate on successive attacking armies strung out along the frontier, but the quicker Prussian concentration nullified this advantage. By the time Austrians were fully assembled, they would be unable to concentrate against one Prussian army without having the other two instantly attack their flank and rear, threatening their lines of communication. The war lasted 7 weeks. Germans called it a Blitzkrieg, or lightning war, a term also used during World War II. Austria had a seemingly powerful army that was allied with most of North German and all the southern German states. Nonetheless, Prussia won the decisive Battle of Königsgrätz. The king and his generals wanted to push onward, conquer Bohemia, and march to Vienna. But Bismarck worried that Prussian military luck might change or that France might intervene on Austria's side, enlisting the help of the Crown Prince, who had opposed the war but had commanded one of the Prussian armies at Königsgrätz. To dissuade his father after stormy arguments, Bismarck insisted on a soft peace so that he would be able to quickly restore friendly relations with Austria. As a result of the Peace of Prague in 1866, the German Confederation was dissolved. Prussia annexed Schleswig, Holstein, Frankfurt, Hanover, Hesse, Kassel, and Nassau. Furthermore, Austria had to promise not to intervene in German affairs. To solidify Prussian hegemony, Prussia forced the 21 states north of the River Main to join it in forming the North German Confederation in 1867. The Confederation was governed by a constitution largely drafted by Bismarck, Wilhelm, who was president of the Confederation, appointed Bismarck as chancellor. Legislation was the responsibility of the Reichstag, a popularly elected body, and the Bundesrat, an advisory body represented the states. The Bundesrat was, in practice, the stronger chamber. Bismarck was a dominant figure in the brand new arrangement. As foreign minister of Prussia, he instructed the Prussian deputies of the Bundesrat. Prussia only had 17 out of the 43 seats in the Bundesrat, despite being larger than the other 21 states combined. But Bismarck could easily control the proceedings through alliances with the smaller states. This began what historians refer to the miseries of Austria, in which Austria served as a mere vassal to the superior Prussia, a relationship that was to shape history until the end of the First World War. Bismarck, who now held the rank of major in the land war, wore his uniform during the campaign and was at last promoted to the rank of Major General in the land war cavalry after the war. Although he never personally commanded troops in the field, he usually wore a general's uniform in public for the rest of his life, as seen in numerous paintings and photographs. Military success brought Bismarck tremendous political support in Prussia, and in the elections of 1866, the Liberals suffered a major defeat, losing their majority in the House of Deputies, and the new largely conservative House was on much higher terms with Bismarck than previous bodies. At the minister-president's request, it retroactively approved the budgets of the past 4 years, which had been implemented without parliamentary consent. Bismarck suspected it would split the liberal opposition. While some liberals argued that constitutional government was a bright line that should not be crossed, most of them believed it would be a waste of time to oppose the bill, and supported it in hopes of winning more freedom in the future. If you would like to get in touch with me, I'm on Twitter, Facebook. You can email me at thehistoryofbismarck@gmail.com, and I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/historyofbismarck. My patrons will get bonus content and will be able to ask me questions, which I will answer in future episodes. See you next time. Bye.